So we are very lucky to have Ken with us from Devika. So I'm actually going to hand the session straight over to Steve, and he's going to run the session for us.
Okay, so I'd like to introduce Ken. So just before I get started, just give you a bit of context about him and a bit of what he's done. So I first met Ken when I first landed at Westpac through Digital Safari. We immediately hit it off just because of my background, exiting a few startups and Ken actually being on that journey now. So we a lot of the times we meet, and it's not directly about the work that Devika's doing with us now, but it's in general quite an impressive journey, and I actually think that there's a lot more to come. So I'd like to introduce Ken. Not only one of our partners, but I'd like to say a friend too. Welcome. And I'd like to just give you a bit of time to talk to all of us about your journey around taking your parents' company to from a auto parts retailer to a digital transformation into the #1 auto parts e-commerce retailer in the country, which is, for me, that's really impressive. And then also some of the work that you're doing with Devika around education and the AR and VR space. So, all right, so I'll just hand you over to Ken.
Awesome, thanks, Steve. Thank you. Yeah, so I think something that Steve mentioned, the best thing I think for me to show what Devika is today and where we're going is to pretty much talk about my background, and it puts into a lot more context why we're doing what we're doing and how it all came about. I'm the founder and managing director of Devika. So we dabble in a lot of emerging technology, but today I'll cover a bit more about virtual and augmented reality and what we're doing in that space, and even together with Westpac, thanks to Steve. So to put in context, like Steve said, being a startup 12 months ago, I pretty much was unemployed, started the company, and this is the home office. So obviously that's where it first started. It was in 3 tables, which was a lot back then, whiteboard, and pretty much coming from the online retailer space, just dabbling in the e-commerce space and doing pretty much what I knew best until I found my feet in exactly the direction I want to take the company, which I'll cover in a bit more. So 3 months after that, which was 9 months ago, we got an office in the middle of Wollongong. So that's actually where the company's from. Wollongong is actually quite strong with the computer science graduates. So, and I've obviously got an IT background. And as you can see, that's 33 square meters. So we fit five people and 10 kids at one time. So what we actually were doing was running our digital agency during the day. In the afternoon, we were running workshops for kids, and nighttime we were developing proactively VR and AR, because a lot of the companies that we were talking to didn't really understand VR and AR. What we found was the best thing to do was just go and build stuff to be able to put in front of people and showcase our skills. So it was quite one of the requirements was that it was 24/7. So we had access to it. We had like a little pad with a code on there, and that's how we used to go in and out. It was in the middle of town, so we were actually with a lot of local companies, and it was about a 5-minute walk to the beach. So we're actually really close to the beach. The cool part with this office, it was actually quite funny because our first clients were actually international. So we deal a lot with American companies because that was kind of my background, and we're dealing with local companies. So at this stage, we were balancing international and local companies and not so much national or state companies. Within the first month, I actually went to China for the G20 summit. So I represented Australia, and I was there to represent emerging technology and education. So to kind of be there to talk about it, but more importantly, to listen to what other countries were doing in that space and how we could come back to Australia and implement some of the successful strategies that they've actually implemented in different countries overseas. And part of that, I ran this thing called the Global Entrepreneur Week, which is where across the country people run workshops. So we decided to run 5 over 5 different nights, and I was lucky enough to get Microsoft, Adobe, Effectors Academy, Beyond Intent, and Human. So different companies come down to Wollongong each afternoon to talk to the Wollongong companies. And during the virtual reality night, we actually had someone there from the University of Wollongong, so Professor Robert Gorkin. So he was young for a professor, and he really bought into virtual reality and could see the potential of it. And he actually knew of a place at the University of Wollongong that was dabbling in virtual reality already, and that was actually the director, Pascal Perez. So he's actually the director of Smart Infrastructure Facilities. So for the last 12 months, when we met him, they were dabbling in virtual reality. But when we went to present what we had done, pretty much what they were trying to do in 12 months, we had already done in 12 weeks. So very quickly he could see just how agile, being a small team, and how rapid we were moving with a lot of the technology. So pretty much within the week we moved into the building. So we now have a room just for the virtual reality development, which is quite a loud space, and then we have a quiet space for development. And he's also given us a room probably a little bit bigger than this for our learning program. So we now have kids coming to the university, and we no longer have to stop working to have the learning program. We're able to juggle multiple workshops while we're still developing. Now, that's pretty much where Devika has come in the last 12 months as far as the journey. The 6 years before that, I actually, after I graduated at the University of Wollongong, went and worked for the family business. And at the time, it wasn't known as Speedmaster. We didn't have anyone that worked in marketing, and we didn't have anyone that worked in technology. So how many people are familiar with like just the waterfall approach, the plan? Yeah, so if you look at the waterfall approach, my first 12 months was just the planning phase. So I was just listening to all of the problems, the pains, the gains, and I decided to implement SAP. Have you heard of SAP? So I decided to implement SAP because we had a warehouse in America and Australia. So obviously part of that was understanding from CRM to the MRP, warehousing, banking, portals, HR. E-commerce platform, and during that 12-month process, I pretty much realized that if we're going to move from a B2B, a wholesale company, to a B2C model, which was going directly to the consumer, which meant that we needed a brand and we needed a website. So when we talk, it sounds silly, but it was like we needed a website. So I was like, okay, what's the domain name? And I was like, we don't have one. So then that's when we were like, okay, cool. And then very quickly, when you start to look at the requirements of going online, it was like, we need photos, titles, descriptions, we need, so it became pretty large. So it was a 3-year implementation, which was really tough. It was a really tough implementation, but 3 years and 3 months, so the 3 months into the launch, which, I do guest lecturing at the University of Wollongong, and I always say, don't look at the definition of failure for a project, because that was me in that 3 years. So if I'd listened to the textbook, I technically would have classified myself as a project manager that had actually failed. But I kept at it until we had launched. And then within that first 3 months, we were then nominated as the most innovative online retailer in Australia, best international conqueror, best in-store initiative, best multi-channel retailer. Within 12 months, we actually were a top 100 retailer in Australia. And then last year, we overtook Supercheap Auto as actually not just online, but as a multi-channel retailer, because the coolest part about being online that I really love, that a lot of traditional companies hate, is that it's transparent. So once you start selling online, it's like you can, on eBay, for instance, had Supercheap Auto been any other family business, they would have got kicked off. So you can see very quickly just having a small team that actually cares about their customers, just how much better penetration we had than companies like Supercheap Auto. So by that time, in that 5th year, 6th year, and I was looking at starting my own company. As soon as I'd started, a lot of people were like, why did you do, why are you doing this? And I think it was because I forgot how hard those first 3 years worth. So I was like, yeah, I'm ready for a challenge. But then you forget just how difficult it is to start something again. But the real reason for it, and I keep trying to play it back in my head, was exactly 2 years ago I went to Silicon Valley. It was for a holiday. But I ended up going to check out all the tech, and that's Tim Christie. He's actually he's from Wollongong, and this is actually overlooking the Bay Area, and he's actually works at Meta. So them and the HoloLens with Microsoft are pretty much the two commercially, commercial products available for augmented reality. So Tim was part of the team. Well, Tim is part of the team still, and he took me around the headquarters, and I tried on the Meta. So 2 years ago, when you're talking about augmented reality, I think a lot of people hadn't even heard of it, and let alone tried the headset on. It was still pretty rough back then with the Meta one, but very quickly I could see just how the next user interface with Speedmaster, when we were building the website, it was all about the browser, about being a desktop website, and then we had to move it to being mobile friendly. And to me, I felt like this was going to be the next user interface when it came to customers wanting to buy their parts, or wanting to interact, or wanting to share knowledge about it, or look at a part. And that's where I really felt like that's the next user interface. So for the next 12 months, I decided that's a photo at TechCrunch. You didn't believe me. But one thing I took away from Silicon Valley was that it's the same four walls everywhere you go. So it wasn't actually quite inspiring just to look at. So when you get there, you don't really feel really inspired. You just kind of like, this looks just like Sydney or Wollongong or whatever. But one thing I took away was the people within those walls, just, the people that you're around and the people that it attracts, just how amazing those people are, and how, I felt after that, as long as we focused on, I focused on building a company with the right people, just how far we could get, and that's like I said, most of the startups that I was looking at were all starting from a garage, so it wasn't actually very glamorous, it wasn't actually impressive, but what was just how driven the people were. So I guess at Devika, what we actually specialize in is we specialize in meaningful experiences, and technology is just the way that I know how to do that. So we actually do web development still. We do mobile application, but at the moment we're focusing primarily on virtual and augmented reality. And we're also now starting to dabble into artificial intelligence and Internet of Things, and how that might work with each other, and how that might work with VR and AR. But more importantly than that, the pillars of the company, I wanted to build it from this thing that we call the 4 Ps, which is the people, planet, pushing boundaries, equal to profit. So it's not that we're a non-for-profit, but when we're building meaningful experiences, we want to make sure that whoever our client is, or whatever the project that we're doing, we're trying to address some kind of, having some kind of motive that's meaningful more than just implementing technology for the sake of it. So one way that we do that ourselves is, like I mentioned, the learning program. So we are actually a registered learning program. It's devika.edu.au, and now we gamify a lot of the way kids can learn. So we build a lot of so we have client work, and our strategy down the track is to actually have approval from our clients to be able to showcase what we've built with them to the students, to be able to rebuild what we've built themselves. Because a lot of the time, myself and a lot of the team have learned what they've learned on their own. It's not something that we learned in high school or at university. So that's our way of giving back. So this is actually at the Sydney Festival. It was actually just down here for New South Wales Transport. We ran how to build a train station for with kids. So it was on behalf of the New South Wales Transport. So it's really empowering kids to start thinking about how they can use Minecraft to actually start building their own train stations, and learning about how in 2020 New South Wales Transport aim to have autonomous trains where there's no drivers, and how that might work, and for them to start understanding what the future looks like through Minecraft. And we also have other workshops around sustainability and also gamifying the process of saying, you want to build your own game, which is, we teach it through Unity. So Unity is the game engine that we use for virtual and augmented reality. And then how to build your own website and how to do blog posts. They also use Slack to talk to each other. Our developers are on Slack. They can actually ask our developers questions for their own game that they're building, or any roadblocks that they might have with their website. So we're making ourselves available for these kids. So yeah, some of the people that we've currently partnered with in a short amount of time has, like Meta, the HoloLens, Unity, Vive. We've started dabbling with IBM Watson. We're accredited Minecraft educator. Nora, which is who we did the digital safari. So Paul Greenberg is actually one of our advisors. Smart infrastructure, and like I said, we were at the G20. That's people that we partnered with, but people that we're actually already done work for is actually like Microsoft, Intel. This was really funny because we have like technology people in the team and creatives in the team. So when I said Intel, it was like the tech heads were like, "Oh, we're doing a project for Intel," and then I was like, "Coachella, it's for Coachella," and then the creatives were like, "Who's Intel?" "Oh, Coachella, we know Coachella." So it was like, it was quite funny. I didn't know what Coachella was, so you know which side.
That's a lie.
Yeah, no. So you know which side of the fence I sit on. But yeah, we did some pretty cool stuff for that festival. New South Wales Transport, the 19 Temple, LNTS, and now Westpac.